where you're just talking and then it goes live.
Yeah. I think we pulled it
Ah, what a
off.
great joke, Alex. That was so funny. Life, man. Life is good. All right. Well, we're probably live right now on YouTube. Welcome, everybody. I'm Nolan Kelly here with Alex Baker. We are doing our very first DraftKings Best Ball Draft of 2020. Alex, are you excited? I'm pumped. I'm ready. Let's go.
Definitely, man. Yeah, like I've been doing these best ball drafts on DraftKings a lot. I have like 40 drafts that I'm doing right now, like concurrently. So
That's amazing. So, are you able to upload your projections? Is that how you're doing them?
no, I mean, I have an idea like where I want to take each player, and you can
Yeah.
edit your rankings, but I didn't actually do that because it's so much work to update like 250 players basically. So I just kind of
It's a lot. It's a lot.
the nice thing is
Yeah.
you can just have them sorted by the DraftKings default, and then you have an idea of what round like everyone's going to go in. So if you're like scrolling down a bunch to get to the player, it's like maybe wait because they're not going to go in for a few rounds.
And that's kind of one of the edges. This is why I've wondered like how some people can upload. I think last year you could do it with Draft where you could upload your rankings or with Yahoo. But also what you're doing, you're kind of missing out on some of the opportunity there by uploading your rankings. Let's say you want David Johnson a little bit higher, as we'll talk about. Then your rankings are going to just take him higher as opposed to waiting when you could get him like a round or two later, right?
Yeah, I mean David Johnson's a great example because his ADP on DraftKings is like 50. I have him
Yep.
as one of like end of second round. Like I
Hmm.
mean, we know the kind of talent he has, and then last year he was just super injured, so a little bit of a risky pick. But like I found that like you can get him in third and fourth round, and then you just have like an absolutely stacked roster because you can get that tight end or
Yeah.
tight
Or the
end or
quarterback.
quarterback, early, and then you're in business. So what have you been finding, man?
Yeah, so I totally agree with you there. I've been waiting on a lot of these guys, like your David Johnson's guys that we have as value plays, because they are going later. Lev Bell, as well as another one of those guys we're going to talk about, because that kind of strategy is going to come into it a lot with best ball. You might as well wait on those guys and hope that they fall. Sometimes they won't fall to you, but the reality is we're going for $1 million here. And if you're going to take David Johnson, where you have him ranked in the late second, early third round, that doesn't give you nearly as much of an edge as when you can wait to like the fourth round. Sometimes I've even got him in the fifth round because he's ranked so low on DraftKings. Before we do get into everything here, though, I just want to give a shout out to you and our whole team for designing our fantasy football draft kit here. It's $29.95 right now. You get a $35 credit at FFPC, so it's basically free. You get paid $5 to sign up for this thing. We got our draft wingman, we got our rankings, we've got a best ball tool, we've got strength of schedule, which I love. It's a strength of schedule based off projections, and this is a more data driven approach. So you're not going to find industry consensus takes. You're not going to find the same old talking points and the same old guys, kind of this echo chamber that fantasy football's become, where touts just influence touts, and it becomes the same guys get ranked out of kind of groupthink or hive mind. So this is basically like your DFS process that's gone into the best ball projection. So it's an advantage if you're going to sign up for this package, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just took my DFS model for NFL and I projected all the games in the season, the 256, and based on that, I'm able to kind of give you a good idea who's going to be really good in playoffs, like what's the overall projection, and then like how the projections of all these different players compare. Because a lot of times the hype does exceed, what a reasonable expectation is, and we find that a lot when we see how these players are going in the draft.
Yeah, 100%. So what we have here on our screen, we got the DraftKings live draft best ball, which should be filling right pretty soon. We're at 10 of 12 right now. And then over here, we've got the draft wingman tool, which is very valuable. You can cross off which players you have on your team. It gives you an idea of how much value they are adding to your overall score. So there's a lot to a lot of advantages that you can gain by using that tool as well. So where are we at here, Alex? Are we at we're at 10 of 12. We got two more picks. I've got a lot of like just best ball questions. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to do this draft, and I'm just going to kind of pick your brain as we go and see kind of what your general thoughts and strategies are about a lot of bigger topics that people are talking about, whether that's stacking, whether that's waiting on players, things like that. So I guess first question is, are we hoping for a pick here? do you want to get one of these top 3 slots? Because my personal experience so far has been that I love getting a top 3 pick, getting Saquon, getting Zeke, getting Christian McCaffrey, and then you're still getting one of these top tiered kind of like tight ends or quarterbacks in the second round pretty much 95% of the time. So sometimes you can even get 2 of those guys on the way back if your draft is especially not sharp. Where is your preferred draft position?
I feel like your odds of winning are way higher if you get the number 1 draft pick because Christian McCaffrey is like hands down the best player. So like that's a 6 point difference between him and Elliott, who I have as my number 2 draft pick.
Yep.
Um, 6 points a week. So I mean, like that's a huge difference. And then
That's crazy.
yeah, it's like you get 24 and 25 pick. Like I mean, that's not great, but you can usually get like undervalued players in that spot. But then like
Mm-hmm.
there's some degree of like you just have to get lucky and like have a unique combination of players because if you do get Christian McCaffrey, it's going to be really hard to pair him with another really good player. So if someone does drop from the top 15 or something, that's a really unique combination. And you're just saying how you got Christian McCaffrey with some really stacked stacks there.
Yeah, like it's happened to me a couple times where I've gotten Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and Lamar Jackson. Like that is such a huge edge on the rest of the field in that draft. Like, there are a million things that are going to happen over the course of the season. One of those guys could get injured and we could be screwed. But you've got the number 2 tight end, the number 1 running back, the number 1 quarterback, and those guys are all fairly highly above the projections for a lot of the players that are coming next. So for me, like that's where the kind of edge comes in as well with some of these top 3 picks or the top 1 pick because you do get that second top player.
Yeah, I mean that's huge because like in this tournament you're going to be competing against a lot of people that have similar rosters,
Yeah.
and if someone drops, that gives you a really unique roster to compete in these finals. We can talk a little bit about the structure. I can't remember offhand like how it works, but like basically like all the leagues combine at a certain point, and then
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah. So the number 1 team in the first round moves on to the next round, and then I can't remember how it was. It was like top 2, I believe, top 2 or 3 advanced for FanDuel last year, and then it was I can't even remember. It's like top 3, and then it was just like the final 40 or 50 teams or whatever.
yeah, so that's really interesting because what you're going to find is the same guys are going to be in all those teams that make
Mm-hmm.
it. And like you're really going
Yeah.
to need a unique combination of players to differentiate yourself from those guys.
Yeah, like for example, Lamar Jackson and Christian McCaffrey were probably on like 80% of the teams or something that made it last year, right? Like that's just the way it was. And it ended up being something unique. I believe it was like a Ryan Fitzpatrick stack that actually took it down last year. Like, so you got to get a little bit creative at some point in the draft, whether that's stacking up a low owned stack, whether that's doing something like, taking players off the boards in the last couple rounds, like we saw Terry McLaurin, for example, last year, went largely undrafted in a lot of these best ball leagues, I think, but was a great pick if you're actually drafting at that point, and you kind of like. You decided to take him over, say, an Albert Wilson or an Alan Hearns. Like I had 90% of my drafts last year.
Nice, man. Yeah. Oh, Albert Wilson. That one's so painful. Of course,
Oh
Juju
man,
Smith-Schuster last year. That was the biggest draft bust for me. Like, and
yeah, it was a tough one.
yeah, it's like
And not out of your control, though. Nothing you can really do about that. I mean, like, sure, he had a weak year, but I mean, who could see Ben Roethlisberger going down, right?
yeah. I mean,
Do
like there's a lot of luck in this, and that's why maybe you got to approach it like a GPP where you build a bunch of lineups that have different players
yeah,
and try to build a different build each time.
that's another thing I wanted to talk about as well is like, do you approach these best ball drafts? Let's say you're doing a number of best ball drafts, like you're maxing out this $20 one, it's 150 max. Are you approaching it like the way you would a GPP in the sense that you kind of want various exposures to players? So maybe like you're high on Cooper Kupp, for example, you want, I don't know, 40-50% exposure, and then like even if you're low on someone like Odell Beckham or Baker Mayfield, you still want to get some exposure to those guys.
Yeah, I like it when those guys drop to me because there's a lot of guys that go a little bit higher than I have them. So then, like, I don't have those guys very much. And, Like
Yeah.
sometimes making a pick that, like you got to have some system to make a pick that would be different than just your normal pick, because otherwise you're going to end up with the same four guys like every single time you build a lineup.
This this is something this is a trap I fall into quite often as well.
Same, yeah,
You just fall in love with the same players over and over again. We're at 10 of 12 here. Should I just enter this draft? Like we've been at 10 of 12 forever. I've
yeah.
got a phone here. I could just enter it. I just don't know if like is that cheating? Like is it it's two guys and we're just like talking? I
Oh, you
feel like it's
missed
a
it,
little.
man. Like
Oh,
you
we
missed your
got in.
chance.
And we are taking Zeke Elliott, my man. Let's go.
Yeah, so like this is an interesting spot. Like I feel like I'm the only person in the industry who has Zeke higher than Saquon.
Yeah,
Like I'll
that's
tell you
okay.
my reasoning, but like, do you just think I'm crazy because of that?
No, I don't think you're crazy. Like I think it's totally fine. Like I don't think there's much between those guys. One thing I wanted to ask you though was like when you're drafting second overall and you're taking Zeke Elliott 100% of the time, essentially that means you're not going to get any Saquon Barkley, right? So
Right.
what I've been doing is just like when I get a second pick, I take Saquon, and sometimes Zeke even slips to third or fourth. So like I'm still getting enough Zeke Elliott shares, or like occasionally I will take Saquon with that second overall pick just to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you take Saquon too, like everyone takes him too, so then you're gonna have like an equal amount of Elliott and Saquon. I guess
Yeah,
maybe I'm trying to be all fancy. Like I also I haven't figured out DraftKings completely because I feel like Michael Thomas might be the best pick at number two too. Because
don't do it. Don't do
well,
it.
no,
That's
I'm
crazy
not
talk.
gonna do it this time. But let me just
Are you
explain.
running out of time here? Do we need to
No,
pick?
I got 14 seconds. So Michael Thomas averaged 24 points last season, and Elliott averaged 21. So I
Yeah,
feel like that is a big difference if you expect Thomas to continue that this year, which maybe not 24, but you expect him to outscore Zeke, then maybe Michael Thomas is the best play, but then like all the running backs fly off the board the first two rounds and you're stuck with really bad
yeah.
ones.
This is the thing. I mean, it's something that's debated a lot in fantasy circles. The zero running back. What I found is like because the variance of the wide receiver position, if you can get one of these bell cow backs, it just makes your draft so much easier because you don't have to reach for running backs to fill out your roster. You don't have to like you can take the wide receiver values. And so what I found is like if I can sometimes even go running back, and like even take a David Johnson or a Lev Bell in the third round, you're so well positioned for running back that you don't you can just load up on wide receiver, take 12 wide receivers, and you can just embrace the variance of that position because Kenny Stills is going to have his days. Randall Cobb, maybe Michael Pittman. Maybe you find that rookie or that Terry McLaurin that goes off. So my like it feels a lot less safe to have the zero running back teams where you go with Michael Thomas, but that's just me. Like I totally understand where you're coming from with the higher projection, right?
Yeah, man, Anthony in the chat says take Michael Thomas over Christian McCaffrey. That might be taking it too far, but
Whoa, Anthony, come on now, take it easy, simmer down there. This is
yeah.
happy hour, all right? We don't
So
we don't want to get too out there.
like it all comes down to like what the options are. So if it's like Miles Sanders or Julio Jones, like I guess I have Sanders projected. I have him higher ranked than Julio Jones, so that's a bad example. But like Aaron Jones versus Julio Jones or something where, like like Julio Jones is a much better fan. Maybe this is still a really bad example, but um, if you have like a Michael Thomas versus Miles Sanders, it's like there's such a gap there that you want to
You
take
should take Michael
Thomas.
Thomas. Yeah,
But like if it's close, maybe you go with the running back.
that makes sense, right? Because you've got like it's a positional advantage. You've got the number one wide receiver. One of the things though that we haven't talked about, and I don't think a lot of fantasy people are talking about, is what's the effect on COVID going to be? And I feel like if it's going to up the randomness of these drafts, you're probably better off going zero running back because like if a couple bell cow backs get COVID, all of a sudden if you can grab their backups later on in the drafts or whatever, maybe you get lucky. Maybe zero running back is more viable this year.
Oh man, this is gonna be a tough
Lamar,
choice. So
Lamar.
well, you gotta take it now. I think I might go with Godwin here. I kind of I feel like I mean he's the highest ADP player here, other than Mahomes, who's overdrafted a
Yep.
little bit. I feel like
Yep.
Godwin with Tom Brady, that'll be good, good
Sounds good.
situation.
Now, here's a good question for you, because you have Mike Evans ranked pretty low, relatively speaking,
Yeah.
but we have the opportunity to reach for Mike Evans here and pull off a Tampa Bay double stack later on in that draft. Is that something that appeals to you? How much would you reach for a receiver like Mike Evans in order to pull off these stacks? Because what we've seen so far is that stacks do really pay dividends in best ball championship tournaments like this.
I know, yeah. I mean, I'm happy getting Brady and Godwin as my stack, but there is advantage in having that double stack because maybe one week. Uh, Let me pull my wingman here. I think that my highest ranked player here is David Johnson.
It is, yeah.
So that's who I'm
I
gonna go
think you
with.
wait on him though. He might come back.
But
Like
the thing is, like, I'm not drafting for 22 more picks. So
that's
like,
still like David Johnson. See this. I think this is where I was curious to hear your thoughts because like in that position, I've gotten David Johnson a number of times on the way back.
I know, yeah, but like my draft pick is gonna be close to 50, and like the thing is, like I'm not expecting any good running backs to be on the board, so maybe I get lucky and one's on the board, but like a lot of times
But
I'm just
like
gonna be on an island here.
so, but wouldn't you rather take Lev Bell there? I'm 100% sure Lev Bell won't be available at that pick. Whereas David Johnson, there's probably about a 30 to 40% chance that he would still be available at that pick. Do you consider like taking a slightly worse projection like Lev Bell in order to give yourself a chance at grabbing David Johnson on the way back?
It's like an intriguing play, but I feel like the gap in like those players for me is pretty high. I know it's pretty close on here, but that's partly because I ding David Johnson for the injury history. And in
Yep.
best ball, like for $1 million, I'm not as worried about that necessarily. So I'm just trying to set up my roster. So, like, I think I didn't have a great draft position where it's like you wait 22 picks for it to come back, and then none of the players you want are there anymore. Like, but you're right. There is a decent chance that David Johnson would have been there.
Yeah, and like I see your point there. Like you're kind of going, you're like to me though that does seem like a safer play. Like you have a highly projected David Johnson. If we're going for like the tournament win, why like aren't you really just aiming for like those perfect lineups that you can construct every once in a while that are like way better than the field? Like when you do get that maybe you take Lebel and David Johnson does fall to you. Like is that not a higher don't you have a higher chance of winning taking down a big tournament like this if you take that risk, or do you disagree with that?
No, I think you're right. Like I probably made the bad move there because, like, although David Johnson might not have been there when I drafted next, like my lineup would have been so good if I took um, a wide receiver or something, and then David Johnson came back. Like it's not going to happen 100% of the time, but my lineup there would be really solid. So that is a
Yeah,
really good
fair.
strategy.
Or maybe you like mix it up. If you're mass multi-entering, right, you don't necessarily need to do that all the time. Watch me eat my words here and have Lev Bell available at the 47 pick. I guess that's not totally out of the question here, considering his ADP is 43.
I know, like I don't. I know there's some hate in the industry because for Love Ball because like last year I feel like the Jets just had a horrible year as a team,
Yeah,
and Lev Bell like sucked. Sam Darnold got mono, like
I know it was a terrible year, and like they're actually one of my favorite secondary stacks because they're really easy to pull off.
mhm.
If you miss out on some of the stacks that you want to complete, somebody snags your quarterback, whatever. Like Sam, like a Rashad Perriman, Jamison Crowder, Denzel Mims, Chris Herndon. Sam Darnold stack is totally viable towards the end of the draft, and you can pull it off in like by slight reaches in three successive rounds. So it's something to definitely consider. Oh my God, we're gonna get Lev Bell here, man. This is crazy. We got to take him, right?
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's just
Take
so
him. This is
okay.
he does not usually fall this far. And then I think if we can get T.Y. Hilton too, like
I know Hilton. I
we're
feel
sitting pretty.
like no one drafts Hilton, but with Philip Rivers, I mean, that's another quarterback that's always on the board, and
Yeah.
I feel like with the change in quarterback from Tyrod Taylor to Philip Rivers, they're going to be passing a lot more. And
Yep.
Hilton, another guy that gets injured a lot, but he's a fantasy monster. Like when he was with the Andrew Luck, so I'm thinking Philip Rivers could be even better. Like maybe I'm being overly optimistic here.
No, no, I think you're right. And like I don't know, like we're not too many years removed from T.Y. Hilton being like a second round pick, right? It's really just the injury history and the fact that he's turning, I believe, 31 this year. So I've been snagging T.Y. Hilton like crazy because the worst case scenario, like you said, like Rivers over Jacoby Brissett is an upgrade in the passing game, even though Rivers' deep ball is lacking a little bit these days. But T.Y. Hilton probably still has 1 to 2 good years left. It's really just a question of whether or not he can stay healthy. And if he can, you've got yourself maybe a borderline wide receiver one, early wide receiver two, and you're getting a bargain basement price on him. So he's probably, I'm going to say, one of my most owned players this year, and I'm happy because it totally agrees with your rankings, right?
Yeah, I mean, like he's the ultimate kind of wait for him to fall guy. And that's kind of one of the things I like that you suggested in this wingman is the
Beautiful.
recommended draft position. So
Hmm.
we have him at 32 as far as ranking, but 42 as far as recommended drafted position. So that really helps you develop a strategy to get these guys at the and maximize the rest of your roster. So I kind of messed it up because David Johnson we have at 34 recommended draft position. I took him at 23. So
Yep.
maybe not the best move by me. I'm still learning.
That's it's all
So
good, man. Like it worked out perfectly because I would have said take Lev Bell and take David Johnson on the way back, but we got them both anyway. So
we
sometimes, and that's the thing about best ball. Sometimes it just like sometimes these drafts just work out so smoothly and
yeah.
perfectly. I was telling you about a draft I just had like right before this call where my team went Saquon, Travis Kelsey, Pat Mahomes. Like those are my first 3 picks. It was beautiful. And sometimes it's an absolute shit show, and you can't get the guys you need or the stacks you need, right?
That's
So
awesome, man. We got a couple of questions in chat here. So William
shoot.
says, "I'm late. Did we talk about where to draft QBs?" So my strategy, like you never want your stack to the QB for your stack to get taken before you got a chance to draft them. So I'm thinking, like I'm willing to take them around before their ADP. What's your strategy been?
I think that's exactly what I think as well. And there's a great article. Like the guys that established the run do a really good job as well. They have a great article up about stacking. You should go check it out as well. Sign up for both packages because those guys are amazing. Friend of the pod, Evan Silva, of course, doing those shows. Maybe hopefully we'll get him on the contrary as well this year. So that's it. That's exactly what the general recommendation is. Like maybe 1.5 rounds too soon to guarantee your stack.
Yeah. So
So where are we at? We've got Tom Brady and we've got Philip Rivers. So we're at a point now where we have a kind of mid-range quarterback and a late-round quarterback that we could stack with our wide receiver ones, which is a good spot to be because it's really easy to just reach around early for Philip Rivers if you have to. And because we're going close to the snake, we could grab a Michael Pittman or a Paris Campbell right next to Philip Rivers, and it makes a super easy quarterback, wide receiver one, wide receiver two stack.
nice. Going back to one of your questions earlier, like or topics of discussion is like I feel like COVID. What we're seeing at MLB is so many games are getting canceled, and if you get a game canceled, like having really stacked teams is going to help because like sometimes you're going to be screwed, but other times it's like there's half the teams on a bye, and then like your team just smashes that week.
God,
So
I didn't even think about that, but you're right. Like it could be, we could absolutely have some cancellations. So
yeah, I mean MLB like I don't know if they're gonna do the same thing as MLB, but they're just canceling games left and right for COVID. So, like that's definitely something that's weighing in my mind. It's not as much about getting the handcuffs. It's like just having guys that are playing, you know. So, like
yeah,
that would be
100%.
hard to do. All
Hey, I
right.
have a question for you before you pick. So we've got Tyler Boyd and AJ Green right next to each other. Do you have any interest in trying to pull off a Boyd Green stack and grabbing Joe Burrow later?
That's a pretty good idea, man. Let me do that. I
All right,
guess I
let's
should
see if we
take
can do this.
Green
Take
because he
take
has the
Green.
lower
Yeah.
ADP.
Although he does have the Q tag, and that does tend to lower ADP a little bit. But worst case scenario, we get stuck with like Jarvis Landry or Devin Singletary
The
here.
thing is, I don't. I guess I have Boyd as a decent pick. Oh, this is the
Yeah,
Yahoo. So let me pull up
to me that
DraftKings.
so this is one of those ones like you're I think you're kind of middle of the pack on these Bengals, but this is one where there's a pretty high variance, right? Where you don't like if Joe Burrow is excellent, if he's a polished rookie, and it's way harder to predict how good he's going to be coming in, right? So we could be in a situation where he is actually a polished elite rookie. All of a sudden, Tyler Boyd and AJ Green suddenly are looking a lot better as picks, right? So this is one of my favorite stacks to pull off when you're in the 1, 2, 3 range, because it's very easy to guarantee yourself both Boyd and Green, and then you can grab Burrow early if you want to the next pick or after that. So, but
One.
what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like I agree that we don't know exactly what to expect with the Bengals this year. But one thing that is really concerning is like last year, they just threw the ball like 67% of the time because they were down so much in games and because
Mhm.
Andy Dalton never runs. But then you got a quarterback coming in who runs the ball a lot more. So I expect them to pass less. And I don't know if, I mean, you're right, he could be really good from the get go, but uh, I don't know if that's a like reasonable like.
It's an outlier
Yeah,
performance, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's
for
hard to
sure.
know because like we don't have any data on him.
Certainly not suggesting you do this like all the time, but I do like the fact that you can kind of this is one like the thing about stacking in these DraftKings best balls is some of the stacks are really hard to pull off because of the various ADP. Like it's hard to pull off like a Rivers Pittman Campbell stack, for example, because all three of those guys are right next to each other. So you really have to reach for one of them. There are various stacks like Giant stacks are really hard to pull off because you have Darius Slayton, Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, and Daniel Jones, all within like 25 picks of each other. And then there are stacks that are like, if things fall your way, are very easy to pull off. So I kind of like sometimes you just have to let that draft fall to you. Like I've only managed to have like 3 or 4 Burrow, AJ Green, and Boyd stacks. So it's not like I've got a lot of shares or anything.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's like when those two guys are right next to each other, it's really hard to get that combo of players. And if Boyd has a big game week 14 and then AJ Green has the big game week 15, then you're gonna win your league. So that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. I'm in. Also, like, let's talk here. Do I get like a 5%? Like, if you win the millie with this lineup, I want
Definitely.
like 5%. All right.
Yeah,
All
I'll
right.
know which lineup it is because it's got this Bengals double stack. Um,
Beautiful.
but yeah, I think that that's it's interesting too because we got with Burrow, he he might get better throughout the season. So like
Mhm.
they could peak like right when the biggest weeks are, and that could be really
Yep.
big for your best ball odds.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and that's a great point too, right? Rookies do tend to kind of have a few growing pains as we get in there or get into the season. So, all right, we're coming up to kind of like a weird stage in the draft here, where like this seems like a little bit of a dead area to me. There's not a lot of like steal players. Like usually, guys who you have pretty highly ranked, like Julian Edelman and James White, are kind of off the board by now. Hopefully, like maybe one of these guys will slip. What are you thinking going into this pick here? Like, are you looking at your roster and saying like, what do we need to add to it? Are you just still looking for value plays? Do you want to add like Tom Brady to the Godwin stack? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think we gotta add Brady at this point because he's just not gonna fall if we wait. So the only question is, do I want to take him with this pick or the next pick? And I feel like there's a lot of good options on the board, so I'm just gonna probably take the safe option and pick him now.
Yeah, that's fair. Do you like? I know you're not high on Rob Gronkowski this year. Would you consider pairing Rob Gronkowski up with him since we don't have a tight end now, or is that too much of a risk?
That's a
or
good
too much of a
point.
reach. Sorry.
Yeah. I think let me see where I have Gronkowski because I see Higby's on the board,
I
and
know Higbee's our guy this year, man.
yeah, Higby, like, it's interesting because, like, you have to read between the lines a little bit with Higby. It's not, like, crystal clear. Is the end of 2019 where he just, like, destroyed what closer to what's going to be, or is Gerald Everett being healthy going to reduce his playing time? And
Yeah.
I think, like, probably somewhere in between. Oh, man, like, this is.
No.
Hopefully, I don't miss my pick here. But like I feel, I don't feel like Gronk has. I mean, his last season was pretty rough as far as fantasy, but
Hmm.
maybe a year off, he's just healthier. Like so, uh,
Looking spry.
the only thing is, I feel like I kind of like Debo Samuel here
Hmm.
because
Wow. See, I think you could probably wait on Debo, and I think he might be. There's like a 50-50 chance he'll be around when we get
well,
back.
his ADP is 105.
But that's cumulative. So this is before like the injury news got bad, right? He's been dropping, I think.
Okay. All right. We'll see if
He
that
might
works
not be. He
here.
might not be. I'm just throwing it out there. He does tend to fall. It's up to you, man. You make your call. Higbee, whatever you want. Like Higbee's pretty solid. Like
I'll just go with Higby because we need a tight end that's going to score like every week, and I don't
yeah.
know like what did Gronk? I wonder what his fantasy average was like 2 years ago, but I
I mean,
can't
it's
remember.
not great, right? Like
Yeah,
he's been injured so much, as well. Like this Tampa Bay offense has a lot more weapons than previous
right.
incarnations of the
Yeah,
New England offense,
yeah.
right? So
I mean, they got OJ Howard at tight end too, so I mean he's not great, but like
he might
maybe Gronk is playing
maybe.
second fiddle. We don't really know.
I mean, that's actually an intriguing last round pick for us, or
Yeah.
close to last round pick for us with this stack because OJ Howard, like Bruce Arians' offenses tend to like kind of be a little bit wary on the tight end. There's some conflicting information there, but if Rob Gronkowski were to get injured, all of a sudden you've got OJ Howard catching passes from Tom Brady, and we've got a double stack that no one else has. So maybe we consider taking him a little bit later on in this draft towards the end.
Yeah, he's a nice late round pick because like the what I'm looking for in that situation is a guy that is one injury away from being like the guy. So like
Yeah,
OJ Howard definitely fits that criteria.
100%. Getting back to Higby for a second, this is one of the most polarizing players I think in fantasy. There are a lot of people that hate him and a lot of people that are high on him. You have one of the highest rankings on him. Some of that is based off of his 5 game stretch where he did have great fantasy point production games, like 5 in a row, I believe. But he also played a lot of bottom tier tight end offenses, including I think maybe the Arizona Cardinals twice, like which was just one of the worst tight end defenses of all time. And then of course they've got the upgrade with Clemson safety linebacker hybrid, whose name I forget, Isaiah Simmons. So my question for you though is like with the Rams running like 11 personnel and 3 wide receiver sets, was that do you think that was a product of them just having 3 wide receivers that could make that were difference makers? Do you think Sean McVay is going to go to more, like now that he has Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee? Like, would you say he's going to go to more 2 tight end sets or more get the tight ends on the field more? Because it seems like their wide receiver core with Josh Reynolds and Van Jefferson as like wide receivers 3 and 4 are a little bit it's weaker than it ever has been, right? And
Mm,
most coaches would adjust their scheme to get away from 11 personnel.
for sure, yeah. I think that is a good point that without Cooks on the team now, there's the replacement player isn't going to be like getting nearly as many targets. So that's one positive. The thing with Higby that in my data, like he's always been targeted a lot when he's on the field. It's just that he's not on the field as much, or he wasn't at the start of last season before Gerald ever got injured. But I'm thinking like he was so effective in those games that like he really showed that they need to feature him more. And it's a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of a narrative, but I feel like Gerald Everett he like started getting healthier and he was even inactive or maybe he just wasn't healthy enough to play. But it's not like they're rushing Everett back. Like they're really leaning on Higbee, and he was incredible. So I'm not projecting him to get 100 yards 5 games in a row, but I think having him on your fantasy teams is definitely something that could pay off big.
Makes sense to me. Rob Gronkowski just sitting there.
Man,
Alex,
I think now we got to take him. Like,
I
what do you
like it.
think?
I like it. I love it. Who else have we got here? Like, who are you reaching for at this stage of the draft? Or not? Maybe not. Sorry, not reaching for is the wrong word, but like, who are you targeting based on your projections right around here? Tariq Cohen is a guy that's been up there. James White's usually gone by this time. It gets a little bit thin. I think like it depends on where your position is. Dallas Goddard is a guy I've been getting a lot of right here. That this kind of seems to be the Titans where you can grab tight ends if you've missed out on some of the top guys.
For sure, yeah, we see it here. There's like 5 tight ends, or all at the top, and maybe getting Gronk here because he's a stack like that.
Why
That makes a lot
not,
of
right? Yeah, why
sense.
not?
The other guys I'd be looking at here. I like Rashad Perryman. I think on the Jets he could uh, have a big featured role, and then that kind of pairs well if we want to get the Jets stack with Le'Veon Bell as well.
Yeah.
Later in the draft. Uh,
Is Jamison Crowder's gone, right? So
oh, he's gone. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
So it's pretty much like down to John Brown and Perriman here. And the nice thing about grabbing Perriman instead of Brown is Perriman up next in our. Oh, I thought we were on the clock, and I was like, "Pretty good, John Brown." The nice thing about grabbing Perriman as well here is you've got another possible quarterback stack later on in the draft. So if you're grabbing a John Brown, well, you know Josh Allen has already gone. That's not a stack option. I don't know if that actually matters at the end of the day, but if you have Perriman, you could easily, circle back and grab yourself a nice stack of Denzel Mims and Sam Darnold if you need to, right? If your other stacks falter.
so I'm a little worried that Joe Burrow.
Oh, Joe Burrow. We got to take Joe Burrow.
Okay.
We have
Yeah,
to.
because our next pick is 143 and
Yeah.
his ADP is 144.
Thank
So
God you caught that. I was spaced out there. We have to take him.
yeah,
So
I
let's
mean,
go ahead.
He wouldn't have been a bad play. It's kind of like what you're saying, where we got to get lucky a little bit, and then he would have been a new stack we could make later.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be bad, but we got
Honestly, there's a chance Perriman is going to be there on the way back as well. Like there's so many wide receivers in this range that you can take, which harkens back to our earlier conversation about grabbing wide receivers. Like I am happy just grabbing wide receivers in this range. The Perrimans, Robbie Andersons, Preston Williams, Sterling Shepard. Like there's so many guys that you can just add to your roster at this point that are going to have 3 or 4 big weeks throughout the season, almost guaranteed. And when you combine those guys, if it all works out to the same point and you're getting those guys have it all works out to the right weeks and they're having their elite performances on those weeks, you've got the makings of a very good team.
Definitely, yeah, I like it. And we see every year. I mean, the variance in wide receiver performances is so crazy. Like Robbie Anderson is a great example because he had 3 weeks where he got over 20 fantasy points, and a lot of weeks where he put up duds too, which is like perfect for best ball. So
perfect, yeah. He's like Diet Will Fuller.
That's another guy that I've been getting a lot. It's sad that someone picked him off the board like pretty early. But that's a guy that he should be the wide receiver 1 if he can stay healthy.
Yeah,
and that's the guy I love picking in like 5th round or 6th round.
Me too. He's gonna, like, if he stays healthy, he could be, he's one of those upside picks that could win you your draft. Right, we're going probably too late right now. Yeah. Have you been able? What do you do with the Houston stack? Because Deshaun Watson, Brandon Cooks, Kenny Stills, Will Fuller, David Johnson is hoping for a thousand season. Am I forgetting anyone? Is it Kiki Kute? Who's the 4th wide receiver there? I can't remember.
They're too wide, or at least in previous years they've got a lot of 2 wide receiver sets. So
yeah. But so, like, are you stacking? Like, can you, like? There's another stack that. Oh, it's Randall Cobb. I was forgetting Randall Cobb, Kenny Stills, Will Fuller. any of those guys, like those guys, that's another stack if you want to take Deshaun Watson that's appealing. Do you have any preference for these wide receivers other than Fuller? Are you going with like a 2-man stack there, a 3-man stack?
I feel I don't end up with the Houston stack a ton because it's hard to get Watson. He gets taken off the board pretty early. It's like the same thing
Yeah.
you're saying where it's like he's taken off around the same ADP as Will Fuller, so that makes it
Yep.
hard to pull it off. But it's definitely a stack I like. Um, and then getting Cooks, he is like the next round, so that makes that makes it a pretty easy stack.
Yeah. Yeah, that's totally fair. When you're doing these stacking, like how do you approach stacking? Do you let the draft kind of come to you, or are you trying to like line up your receivers up beforehand to target your quarterbacks?
Well, I know I want at least 3 stacks in my lineup just because like you're gonna get 3 quarterbacks, so you want to plan ahead
Yep.
to get that right combo. So it looks like we kind of locked in our stacks. We got Cincinnati, Indiana,
We got
and
Tampa.
Tampa.
Yeah.
So
So do we want to take like a Michael Pittman or a Paris Campbell and a Phillip Rivers?
yeah, I
Rivers we
mean,
can probably wait on until the next round.
I don't know about that. His ADP is like 150 or something, right? Let me pull him
Let's.
up.
Where's the quarterback?
166.
Yeah. You're right. Like it's probably 50-50 that we get Rivers.
Yeah.
So.
I'll definitely wait on him for this pick. If like the thing is, I don't really see anyone that I love at this range here. So
What about Preston Williams, James Washington?
this
Who else we
is
got?
this is usually
Dallas
actually
Goddard. We need a. Do we have? Oh no, we got
we
two
have
tight
two
ends.
tight ends already. I think this is where I usually go for that running back that could win your league. And I see a lot of these guys have already been taken off the board, but Madison,
Boston.
Latavius Murray are my favorites.
Yep.
But I'm kind of keying in on Boston Scott here. How are you feeling
I
about
like
Boston
it.
Scott?
I mean, I think big upside. I think there's a scenario where he's more utilized than a lot of the people in the fantasy community think he's going to be. Matthew Berry is chiming the bells about Miles Sanders' usage. So if he's the kind of back at this draft pick that I think you want to get, because not only does he benefit greatly if Miles Sanders is injured, but he also has a role in Philadelphia's offense if he doesn't get injured, right? So you still are going to get some production regardless of whether or not Miles Sanders does get injured this season.
Yeah, that's big because you on those bye weeks you need to get some points, and the guys like Madison and Boston Scott, they're not gonna put up. I mean, I think Madison averaged like 6 points last year, but that's a lot better than 0. So that's another reason I like those guys. Although, like a lot of times, you can get guys that will average higher amounts that don't have that upside at the same spot. So
So we're going Rivers here, Rivers Hilton stack.
that's what I'm thinking. I just don't want to lose out on Rivers. I'm really high on him this year too because I feel like the Colts passed a ton when they had Luck. And then with Brissett, they shifted more to a run-heavy offense. I think that now they got Rivers, they're going to go back to passing a lot. So that's what I'm anticipating.
All right, I like it. We got any questions in chat here for Alex? Fire away.
Tube said
Happy to
Scott is
answer.
Kareem Hunt light. Kareem Hunt's another guy where he's like, yeah, that's a great comparison because Kareem Hunt, he had a monster role in Cleveland even with Nick Chubb, and he could easily be a RB1 if Chubb misses games. So have you managed to get him, or he's never fallen?
I've gotten 0 Kareem Hunt. I have
Man.
0 Kareem Hunt shares.
I wonder where he's being drafted because
People are reaching.
they
and like
are.
it. Yeah.
Let me pull up his ADP because I'm really curious. It's 65.
And he's ranked way lower on DraftKings.
Wow.
Yeah,
Interesting.
he's ranked 104.
So let me see what I have him at 43. So I need to take my own advice here and start moving.
Me
up,
too.
up the
Me too.
board.
This is a good moment here. I want to be taking some Kareem Hunt because because I don't want to be missing out if Nick Chubb gets injured. And that's this nice segue to another conversation here about some of the guys that you have ranked a little bit lower than the consensus. Nick Chubb is one of them. I think the argument against Nick Chubb is pretty clear. His usage rate went down. His work in the passing game went down when Kareem Hunt got back. Is that basically why you're not as high on Chubb as the consensus?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly just because I think there are a lot of great options, and like especially on DraftKings where you get you get the full point for receptions. That Nick Chubb is a great play. It's just that he's getting drafted really high. So 13 is his ADP, and I'm just not willing to take him that high when I feel like there's better alternatives.
And second first round running back that you have low, Joe Mixon. Can you talk a little bit about why you have him low?
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is like he averaged 15 points a game last year, getting pretty much the same workload that we'd expect this year, where he was like the bell cow back when he was playing. So it's just he's getting like the same usage as some other guys, but Cincinnati's offense just is a lot worse, and he doesn't receive the ball quite as much as some other guys. So I just don't. I don't think he's a bad play. I'm just a little baffled about why he's getting taken in the first round.
So why do you? What do you do with someone like Joe Mixon in terms of like when we talked a little bit about how like you're 150 maxing, you're very low on Joe Mixon. What percentage of lineups will you actually take Joe Mixon in if you were 150 maxing and you're very low on him?
0 probably, just because like
0. All right, good to know.
Yeah, I mean like you gotta make some stands, and you like it makes sense to take a worse player if it's like Contrarian, but in this case it's not like he's like the chalk, and I think he's not like gonna live up to that hype, so I'm just off him completely. All right, so let's
Fair enough.
let's figure out who.
Are we taking a running back here? Because are we going for? Oh, I guess Pittman and Campbell are gone here, so we don't need to pull off the double stack.
So we gotta make a decision quick. So I'm just gonna
James Washington,
maybe we go with
Denzel Mims. I love it.
yeah, he's another rookie that like he's gonna be playing, so that's enough at this stage for me to take a shot. I think
He's actually one of my favorite late round picks there because there's just so much variance with his outcomes, right? So you have Jamison Crowder, you have Rashad Perriman, and you have Lev Bell, but like who else is going to start in that offense, right? I know it's Adam Gase, it's slow pace, it's terrible offense, but like there's a chance that he, finds some chemistry with Sam Darnold. Maybe Rashad Perriman becomes that like kind of outlier play, and all of a sudden Denzel Mims is like, the go-to guy in the New York offense. Not out of the question, right?
definitely. Yeah, so we gotta find some high upside guys to fill out our roster.
How's our roster? What are we looking at? So we got Zeke Elliott, Johnson, Lev Bell, and that's it. Boston Scott at the quarterback position. 3 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends.
We're balanced, so I feel like we just gotta take the highest upside play.
This is one of is it? Oh, highest upside. No,
I feel like
no Corey Davis then.
Oh, we could get T Higgins.
Yeah, let's do it. Triple stack.
You gotta love that.
I love it.
Right?
Absolutely. Triple stack, double stack, double stack. Maybe we grab Jack Doyle too. So we've got.
There we go. I like it.
So we've got Rivers and T.Y. Hilton. We've got Burrow in the triple stack, and we've got Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, and Chris Godwin. This is this to me is one of those drafts where things have kind of fallen really nicely for us. Like though we've had to reach a couple times, we maybe could have gotten T. Higgins around later. There are a couple situations where, in an ideal situation, you might get that player around later, but you pretty much just kind of have to reach at that point. Would you consider taking O.J. Howard if he falls to us again?
I usually take 3 tight ends. So just because you have so many roster spots, so that makes a lot of sense to me. Just kind of like he's nicely correlated with our lineup, and a little bit of a handcuff situation where if one of them gets injured with Howard and Gronk, maybe the other gets bumped.
Goes off. So this is a good chance to talk about handcuffs. Do you approach handcuffs in best ball? Because there are many schools of thought, like, and in fantasy, like sometimes handcuffs are deemed as like a safe play. In best ball, it almost seems like they're guaranteeing you a floor week to week, right?
Yeah, in season long, it's a great play to take the handcuff to your running back
Hmm.
because like you're replacing your number one starter potentially with a guy that is going to be projected really well. Whereas, like, if you have a handcuff to another running back, you're upgrading maybe your second running back to this handcuff. If the injury situation breaks the right way, that's not nearly as big a swing. So, like in season long, taking the handcuff to your quarterback seems like the mathematically correct play. Now, in best ball, we're not worried about floor because uh, first prize is so much. So in
But
this,
like, okay, so let me interrupt you there for a second though, because like if you have like a situation like, let's say, a Madison and Cook, or maybe like that's like you're going for the upside there, and you don't want to handcuff with Cook, because if Cook gets injured, you've wasted a roster spot. You're
right?
essentially done anyways, right?
Yeah.
But what about situations where like the 49ers offense, where it's like Tevin Coleman and Raheem Mostert, or the Dolphins offense with Jordan Howard and Matt Breida?
Hmm.
You grab both of those guys, and there's a good chance that one of them each week is going to provide you with a fairly possibly fantasy relevant scoring situation. Is there not?
Yeah, I mean that could decrease variance a little bit because when one's on the field, the other is on the sidelines. So like that definitely increases your floor, and then you get an extra bump if one of them's out. But that I guess that I suppose that's not like an advantage per se. So I don't hate the move. I just don't think that would be a league winner necessarily. You're really hoping that one of the two like goes off for the season.
Makes sense. Same scenario with like a Mitch Trubisky and a Nick Foles.
That
Like, you're not
one,
taking both those
oh
guys.
man, like that one, I feel like this is a great question because if you want to stack up some teams, you got to take maybe two quarterbacks from the team. All right,
Interesting.
let's take a.
Kenny Stills. Who are
I
you
don't
looking
know
at?
if like the depth chart looks great for him this year. So I mean, um,
We're going too far down here.
Reynolds.
You can no Reynolds will be there guaranteed next round.
Okay.
Guaranteed.
Maybe third tight end. Did we say OJ
John Ross
Howard?
quadruple stack. No, I'm kidding. Gerald
I feel like
Everett.
Ian Thomas is probably my highest uh,
Nice.
play there because he had a big year when Greg Olson was off the team, so maybe he can do it again.
Okay, I take it back. Maybe not guaranteed Josh Reynolds would be there. Good chance he'll be there. We can take him now if you want. I take it. I dial that back a little bit. I didn't realize there were. Are we on just wide receivers here? No. So he's like 10th.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I take that back. If you want Reynolds, grab him.
Let me see where he is on my rankings because it's hard to remember exactly. 169, so that definitely seems like a good play. So I'm perfectly happy with Reynolds at this spot.
Cole Beasley. Yeah. All right. Look, can we take a quick when you got a sec? Let's take a quick look at our roster construction so
All
far.
right, let's do it.
All right, so we got Tom Brady stacked with Gronk and Godwin. We've got T.Y. Hilton stacked with Philip Rivers. We've got Joe Burrow with the triple stack. And then running backs Zeke Elliott, David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, Boston Scott. So we've got 4 running backs right now. How many bench spots do we have left?
We got 3 spots.
3 spots. So we've got 4 running backs. What's a good number? What are you kind of targeting when you're knowing that you've got an elite running back in Zeke Elliott? Are you like what's 5? What's a good number here?
Yeah, I think just because you have 20 spots and you got let's see, 3, 6, 7, 8 roster spots every week, that
Hmm.
you can get 5 or 6 running backs and maybe 7 or 8 wide receivers. So that would leave 3 tight ends, 3 quarterbacks. So six running backs, 8 wide receivers, 3 quarterbacks, 3 tight ends is kind of my default. Um,
Now, But like that seems like maybe possibly overdrafting running backs a little bit,
Yeah,
especially like when you know Saquon's gonna be one of your two, possibly three.
there is the flex spot though, so you can get
Yeah.
three scoring for each week. Um, it's just like a lot of my players at running back are like stash players, so that I'm not expecting to produce very often.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's how it's
So
shaking out for me.
with this part of the draft, like what are you hoping to accomplish here? Because like you said, these guys aren't going to be contributing hugely. Are you hoping to hit that home run with like a guy who may become the next a Bryce Love or something like that? I don't. He's probably gone by now, but or are you hoping to like supplement your roster with like a Cole Beasley or a Danny Amendola, like a safer play that's going to guarantee you maybe a few weeks? What's your strategy down here?
I think like wide receivers that are going to be on the field like are usually decent plays at the spot, like Danny Amendola,
Mm.
because the variance at that position is so high that like even Danny Amendola,
He had like
he
3 or 4 games over 20 points last year.
did he really? Yeah, you're right.
Like, take a
That's
look. So
insane.
one, two,
Yeah,
three, four,
he
four.
averaged 10 points a game, and he had 4 games over 20.
Yeah, you touted him 1 year, 1 week at like 2.2% ownership. I'm like, no, not doing it. Can't too safe a play.
You're making me
And
blush, man.
he probably won us the Yahoo thing, and he didn't tell me.
Oh yeah, that's right. We made all those lineups for Yahoo. That was awesome.
We're gonna win this year, man. We're gonna win. Uh, okay, so yeah, we've got a few options like the Cole Beasleys you said. What about running backs here? Are there any? Can we take a quick look at who's left? One of my favorite guys, he's gone now because the Q or out tag is off him. Is Carlos Hyde? I think that's a really good handcuff this year with or not handcuff, but just like a play that could pay dividends if Chris Carson
Yeah,
gets injured.
Chris.
I know who I wanted to bring up. Sorry, Kendrick Bourne. Should we be like reaching on Kendrick Bourne here? Jalen Hurd out. Uh, Debo Samuel. Who knows? Kendrick Bourne might be like starting, like might be just playing 100% of snaps.
Yeah, I mean it's not a bad idea. He's on the field a lot. Um, I don't know if he's gonna see like a ton more snaps, but he did have like good upside last year. So that's a guy like we got Amendola, as you were saying. I feel like his playing
Amendola.
time
Yep.
is pretty good.
Yeah.
Um,
I think
wait,
we're
so
good with guys.
did we? Oh, Bourne's here. Okay.
Yeah.
The,
Bourne, Amendola would be, and Kenny Stills. I think would be three guys
okay.
possibly.
So let's go with Bourne. I like that play there. Um, the running back I'm looking at here, like this is gonna sound dumb, but Raquel Armstead,
Yeah,
because
I like that.
it's just
It's
everyone's dogging Fournette because he almost got cut. But like, what
yeah.
if he gets cut? Like, because the Jacksonville Jaguars have a bad season, and then Armstead's starting the last 4 games.
Yeah, and he's a free agent, I believe, after this season. Like Jacksonville doesn't want to re-up him. Like this is one of those late round picks that could win you your draft, right? He could goose egg and he could start for Jacksonville in possibly like an underrated offense, right? G Money Minshew, Chris Conley, Laviska Shenault, DJ Chark, and DD Westbrook. Like that's not maybe it's not terrible. It's not
I mean,
abysmal.
it's an NFL offense, so like they're gonna have good weeks.
That's true. That's true. So what are we looking at? So we got one pick left.
Yes.
Do you at
So
this point are you like looking to shore up anything? Any
no, I
weaknesses?
think we got 3 quarterbacks, 3 tight ends, and
Yeah,
7 wideouts. So maybe just one more wide receiver.
yeah,
Um, so at this point, it's just like who's gonna play, right?
yeah. So Chris Conley, I think is. I mean, now you're looking with Laviska Shenault in the mix. There's four wide receivers deep, but he
Yeah.
did have 700 yards last year. Possibility. Um, one conversation that we had earlier on in this week is like, is this a spot where you can differentiate your roster and try and grab that like sneaky rookie that no one else is going to have that might take off, or that that guy that like maybe is only getting drafted in 5% of drafts, like your Willie Sneeds, or like your Devin Duvernay would be a guy who's like maybe going to win the slot job in Baltimore. Like, is this a spot where you can you can try for the home run hit because you know this guy's probably not going to factor in generally. It's pretty hard to pass up Kenny Stills if he lasts, though, I got to say.
Yeah, I mean, like, I like the concept. I just don't like all the guys that I know of that would fit that. Like, have been long gone here. So, like, if you have any good picks at this point,
Okay,
it's like,
so here are the guys that I think could do that. Antonio Gandy Golden could start in the slot for the Washington football team.
that
I think that's one.
sounds
Kenny
yeah,
Kenny Stills is one injury away. I mean, you got
yeah,
Randall Cobb who's had like 14 concussions, Will Fuller who has hamstring injuries galore. All of a sudden, Kenny Stills is the wide receiver one in that offense. So
yeah,
that to me is a real plus possibility. Who is Trickon Smith? I don't think the breakout's going to come.
yeah.
Duvernay, as I mentioned as well, could be one, and Snead probably has limited upside. And I think that's probably we're getting towards the end of possible. Like,
Yeah.
can you get a look at the wide receivers there for a second? Another one that we could stack would be either Tyler Johnson or Scotty Miller from Tampa. Who Scotty Miller is probably the favorite to run in the slot, but Tyler Johnson. Out of Minnesota, I think he was a 4th-round pick, is also a possibility. So that's, we all know how much that Tom Brady loves throwing to his slot receivers, or has over the past few years with Edelman and with Amendola and Wes Welker. So that's a guy that one of those two guys might be someone we could consider as well, because we already have the Tampa stack.
What's going on with Josh Gordon these days? Because I can't remember if he's one of the guys that Seattle was looking at.
No more.
No,
more
he's
Josh
not.
Gordon.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm done with him. You got to take Kenny Stills here if you last.
Yeah,
Why would you not?
I agree.
Why would you
I think
not?
that's definitely he didn't have a great year last year, but we can't hold against him at
If you're
20th round.
20th round, he had how many yards did he have? 685 or something last year?
Wow, yeah, I can't believe no one's taking
687.
him. That's egregious that he's on the board here. Yeah, Bernard,
Demarcus Robinson, but he really, yeah, Gio Bernard is not a bad one, but like that's a total floor play.
Does Mixon have like a backup that would take it, or would Bernard be the guy? I can't remember.
No, Bernard would just stay in that role
Okay.
as the 3rd down back, and I'm trying to remember their the backup running back is Travion Williams, and I think they've also got Samaje Perine as well. So yeah, I would say like Travion Williams would probably take over that like 2-down back role, and Joe would see an uptick in the passing game, but I think for the most part you'd see some sort of committee. Did Kenny Stills go?
Oh shoot! What happened to my thing here? Like, oh, here we go.
The DraftKings app. He's
now,
gone.
now we're really scrambling here. So, man, who's gonna even play? Like Arcega Whiteside, is he a starter anymore? Like I can't.
Gandy Golden.
Scantling, I guess. I'll just take him
Sure.
because I got 5 seconds, but I know that
Yeah.
Devin Funch just opted out, so that means
That's a good one. Like he's
yeah,
going to see the field, right? And like if
Yeah.
Alan Lazard disappoints at all,
Yeah.
you've got yourself a wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 2. So, yeah, not a bad option.
Not a guy I feel good about, but I have a feeling he's going to be on an NFL roster at the start of the season, so that makes me feel good about that.
Let's stay there. Vance McDonald, just bringing up nightmares from last year. I had so much Vance McDonald.
Oh man,
I cry myself to sleep looking at his name.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the roster and see how we feel. I feel like the biggest mistake that I made here, and like you try to save me from it, but I drafted David Johnson too early with the idea that he was the best player on the board, but it wasn't that much more than anyone else. And if I gave him a chance to drop, then I could have had a really stacked roster, and that upside is more valuable.
Makes sense. But at the same time, like you still built this is a pretty good team in my opinion. Zeke Elliott, David Johnson, Lev Bell, solid running back core. You've got 3 stacks that are pretty solid stacks here with in Tampa, Cincinnati, and a one-off stack in Indianapolis. 3 tight ends to give you some floor and some upside with Higbee and Gronkowski, and then we just threw numbers at the position towards the end with those wide receivers. So I like it, man. I like this draft.
One of the
what grade would you give it?
I'd give it a B because I feel like so much regret over that one David Johnson pick. But but here's the thing about this this format is like if you're stacking three teams, like
Yeah.
how many people are going to stack like the same three teams? Because there's like 32 teams, so the number of ways to
Mhm.
stack three teams is so many. So it's like just having that three team stack, that might be
Yeah.
enough differentiation to have that upside to win.
I think you're right, and I think three-team stacks are the way to go. I've been trying to get the thing is like it really depends on how your draft goes because if you get like let's just say you pull off like a Mahomes stack or something, and then like you've got another really high upside stack, maybe you get you get something falls a quarterback falls to you and you've got like a good stack. All of a sudden, like do you really like how often is your third stack going to outscore like Mahomes and Deshaun Watson or something like that, right? Like you got to let the draft come to you in some way. So it's almost like if you do get one of those top quarterbacks, you get a Lamar Jackson, like you have to probably stack a little bit less, right? Because Lamar Jackson is going to be your guy for the
Yeah.
season. He
Yeah.
didn't have less than 20. He had like one game less than 25 fantasy points last
Right.
year.
You're right. Yeah. If you have Lamar, like you don't need to stack necessarily because you can get it done on the ground, and if he's averaging 25 points, I think last year it was more like 30, but like let's be
Yeah.
reasonable. Maybe he gets 25, and then like what's the chance that Tom Brady gets 25? He got that twice last year. He came close two other times, but
Yep.
like that just shows like you don't need to stack if you got Lamar. Any other quarterback, I
Exactly.
think, like you probably want to stack.
I think you're right. The only Lamar stack that I am in love with right now is just like when Mark Andrews drops because he is dropping. I've had some teams where I take Lamar in the second round and all of a sudden Mark Andrews is there in the fourth round. You might as well take him at that point.
Yeah, I mean, that's I haven't had as much luck with Mark Andrews. I don't think I've seen him on my board even. Like he gets drafted so much.
Yeah, and
Um,
the thing with Mark Andrews is there are always going to be better players available at that point. I think according to your rankings as well, right?
yeah,
So like you got to choose, you got to make that choice between like the Lev Bells, and the David Johnsons, and the Mark Andrews. And sometimes maybe you make that pivot and you take the Mark Andrews stack just to differentiate a little bit, right?
yeah. I mean, that's nice when you can pull it off for sure.
100%. All right, man. Are we going to do this again next week?
Yeah,
Probably
sounds
got
good,
like 8
man.
million more questions for you.
Yeah, let us know in
So
the chat like what you thought, and we'll make sure
yeah,
to take that feedback and put it in next week.
yeah, maybe we can answer more questions next week as well. And we're going to start. We got a lot of good stuff coming up here at Awesemo.com. We've got two new fantasy football podcasts slash YouTube shows launching next week with some of our new fantasy football crew, including Matt Gajewski and Kyle Dvorchak, who are really good fantasy football minds. They're going to be going on podcasts with Ben Rasa and Laffy. Of course, we will have some more mock drafts coming up for you and all kinds of content as well. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And of course, sign up for our draft kit because it's basically free. You get $35 at FFPC. You get so many tools. You get a strength of schedule, projections-based strength of schedule tool, the Draft Wingman, rankings, cheat sheets, tiers. It's super cheap. It's only $25, $29. How could you not? All right, smash that like. I forgot to ask for likes, but if you could hit that like on the way out as well, we greatly appreciate that. And I guess we will see you. Let's aim for the next time, same time next week, Alex.
All right, let's do it.
All right, thanks everyone. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you for watching.